Good evening, Martha.
Oh, I'm just so glad to be here. I just love that music. He is so cool.
He's cool on this side, too.
Well, Nancy brought a tape of Elvis's I Can Hardly Wait to See, and I think I get to see it this weekend. And then guess what Marilyn found today? She found that calendar of Elvis, and she's just tickled as more as I am, or as much as I am. So we're getting it out of the paper and going to put it in a good place tomorrow, and I get to see Elvis, and he'll be in the house with me. Isn't that neat?
It sure is.
So we're going to have Elvis's calendar here. And so we're just going to let you have John come in and tell you so you don't have to be lost and blind anymore, so we're going to let him tell you all about it. So I'll be back.
All right, Martha.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Is this John?
Yes, I am John, and I'm glad to be here this evening. And welcome tonight, and glad you came. And I know the weather is not very conducive to driving, but I'm glad you're here, Nancy.
Well, thank you very much.
And Mac, I know it was difficult for you too, so you're both in good hands here, safe inside the house tonight. You won't have to worry about the weather for a while.
That's good. Thank you.
And I do want to mention about the song. There's some things in there that are wonderful that you need to know, but there's also something that you need to know as part of the oppression and the darkness that was been oppressing people for thousands of years, is telling people they're sinners and they're wretches, is part of keeping people in shame and in guilt and the fear that they produce, because of that's one way in organized religion to control people. So the spiritual songs and the religious songs and the hymns have a lot of truth, but you have to sort it out and weed it out and know that you were never rich. It feels like it sometimes, and in balancing your past lives, you definitely have to go through the negative energy and the positive energy to heal that and come into grace and come into that neutral energy we call grace. But it's, the words they use are very deflating, I guess you might say, of your spirit. And so many people have bought into that guilt and shame that comes from certain words, meaning that they're actually suppressing the real spirit of who you are. And so many people have bought into it because of various reasons, and not only home influences, but society's influences. And it's really sad that, those seems to be what has become predominant over the last several thousand years of churches growing and expanding, and new ones picking on new ways of controlling people, and even becoming cults in some situations. So, that seems to grow heavily on people's minds, and they buy into it and don't always know there's an option. And tonight when it talked, you were in the song about once you were blind and now you can see. Well, we're going to talk about that tonight, and you're no longer going to feel lost, we hope, tonight, because you never were lost, and we're going to talk about that. And the words are just labels for energy, so don't give those words any power anymore. The ones that keep you down in the dungeon, so to speak, with the dragons and the monsters and all those things that are not real, but part of the fear that they try to monger and produce. And the truth is, those energies aren't good or bad, but they're lessons of learning that the love is always going to heal it, and knowing that that's true. We can walk out of that darkness and shine light on it, because the truth is, you are all ascended masters that have come down to learn these lessons and to show others, to help others, to show there's the light inside of them too. Some people have picked up sooner on that their inner being is light. Some people are still working on that, and some people aren't ready to understand and come and awaken to that. But you people have. You came, both of you, to shine your light, and both of you are doing a good job in very different ways, but doing it. And the spiritual path you're both on has helped many, many people. Nancy, you will never maybe know the ripple effect of what you've done in helping people like your daughter, Anna. You are a blessing to so many people that you facilitate, you're there, you contribute, you are constantly helping and participating and doing what needs to be done and stepping in, and that's a very spiritual talent, just like other talents. I know people think that you have to be a psychic or something to have a spiritual talent, but that's not necessarily true. You see, when it's done in love, it becomes a spiritual talent. And because other people benefit it, it grows, and your light shines even brighter. And you have a very bright light inside, Nancy. I don't think you sometimes realize that, but you do. You have a wonderful, beautiful light inside of you, and not to be shy or embarrassed. It's just that you're a wonderful, wonderful light of God, and you seem to have a very happy personality, and that's what people see. That's the light. You know, you smile, you're happy, you're jovial, and that's the light. And it can be in helping others in all kinds of ways, which you do in your lifetime and your activities, just as Mac has his way of helping people through healing and being of service in other ways that he does, that he's often told when he's not driving the shuttle that he was missed. And you see how much he influences others by his light, and he doesn't probably think of it that way either, that driving a shuttle is a spiritual gift. But for some people, that's a very nice bright light in their life, and just to stay home in their depression is not necessarily fun, and they look forward to having him drive the bus, because then they're in the presence of more light than what they are otherwise. So that's a spiritual talent and a spiritual gift that he shares with others. And they often will say, well, the other fellow was fine, but we missed you. What a nice feedback to know that your talents are being appreciated by others, and that's important. And you know, we are at the doorway of ascension. We have gotten to the point where you people are so close to putting that foot across the threshold. So tonight I just wanted to help you maybe do some of the last little footwork to make that happen, and so your light can shine even brighter. And when you came to this lifetime, and the many lifetimes you've both had here on Earth, which has been hundreds and maybe thousands for some of you, it doesn't happen overnight. One of the things some people don't understand is that little by little that light shines by gradually shifting your choices and your attitudes and your communication and your understanding as you awaken little by little. If you were to wake up all at once into the total light of God, it would blow your circuits. Your whole system would go poof, and there wouldn't be any more Nancy or Mac. It would be too much for the circuitry of your system. So it has to be gradual and little increments. And so as you're gradually waking up, and both of you have done a marvelous job of that, but there's still a little residue here and there in the corners and crevices. And you people have done some major work throughout these many, many lifetimes, and you're to be totally congratulated on that. That this is really kind of the tip of the iceberg that is the last of the last, and that needs to be worked on. And to understand that every time you make a choice for love to be in your life, a choice for God to run the show, and to let His will be done, is to allow things to fall in place the way they will, and to recognize what your work in the results is, so that it cooperates with the universe, is very important. The ego tells us all these things to keep us from walking through that choice of picking the light in our lives and picking the love and moving into grace. And amazing grace is amazing. And the ego will do anything it can to perpetuate its own mindset, you might say, convincing you you're separated from God and what a bad person you are because of the separation, and it lays this huge guilt trip on people that you're separated from God, and then churches go even further to say you're a sinner, and that's a big guilt and game show. And I'm here to say that with Ascension, that lie is going to be exposed. Nobody ever has left the presence of God. And anytime you feel like you're not in God's presence, it's the ego, and it needs to be changed to say, I don't choose to believe that anymore. I know it's not true. I know it's been a big game for thousands of years through churches and organizations that want to continue perpetuating that idea, and I don't choose to play their game anymore. And as you walk out of that shame and guilt, oh, you're a sinner, you caused all this to happen, I want you to say that nobody can save you but yourself. So to look to somebody else is just continuing their game and keeping you separated from God. You see, if you're already one with God, it's just a matter then of moving your energy into that truth. And so you see, you don't have to be a wretch. It doesn't mean you're a sinner. It just means you missed the mark. And as you move closer and closer to the oneness of God, it doesn't matter what labels people put on it. It means that you're moving your energy higher and higher into truth, and not to buy into the low energy that's labeled things that cause people to go into depression and illnesses because they feel they're separated from God and not in harmony. Their body seems to feel they're out of harmony because the ego says, well, you're such a bad person and da-da-da-da. So, people buy into the medical paradigm, and that's another lie that is going to be exposed too, is that we are healthy in the presence of God, and as we move our energy higher and higher into that presence, the healthier you will be. It is not from drugs that you get healthier and higher. Actually, it works in the reverse. And that's how they perpetuate more patients and more income to lead people down the path that we have a pill with an instant cure when actually it is a poison. And you know what poison does. They've taken the skull and crossbone off of a lot of different bottles of things that used to have them, that used to be under the kitchen sink, used to have bottles with skull and crossbones. And have you noticed that they're even deceiving people about the poisons that are in their lives and not labeling them the correct way, an accurate way? It's called being politically correct. And I want you to know that politically correct is a spin to divert your attention from what is really going on. And so to know that this spin has been going on for eons and not to buy into it. You see, if you are going to save yourself, it's a matter of having understanding and knowledge. And the knowledge that you are free to be yourself, and you don't have to buy into other people's criticisms, judgments, that you don't have to buy into this is good and that's bad. Some of you might have heard an old adage that one person's poison is another person's perfume. So what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another, because you each have your own lessons. So what might work for one person, alcohol might be fine for one person, and another person is like poison. So you see, not everybody can say that's good or that's bad, and you have to just discern for yourself what works, and not necessarily listen to what's around you for your advice and information.